Japan Station is made possible by Patreon support. If you would like to support Japan Station and make sure we can keep bringing you more content like this, then head on over to japankyo.com/Patreon and sign up for as little as $1 a month. Welcome to Japan Station. I'm Tony Vega. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. My guest today is a professional Rakugo performer, Tatekawa Shinoharu. So, Rakugo, in case you forgot or you just don't know what Rakugo is, it's this traditional form of Japanese storytelling, usually comedic, but not always. There are scary stories. There are more dramatic sort of tearjerker stories. But Rakugo is this form of storytelling that dates all the way back to the Edo period. It emerged with like kabuki and a few other art forms at the time. And it was this form of entertainment for the commoners. And it's basically just one person on stage, seated in the seiza position on this traditional sort of cushion. And they are telling stories. They are entertaining crowds all by themselves. They are embodying the characters in the story. And it basically looks like they're talking to themselves because they are playing multiple roles. And it's just them by themselves telling these stories. And it's super entertaining. I love Rakugo. I've used it to study Japanese and just to be entertained. So I highly recommend checking Rakugo out, especially if you're studying Japanese. But there is Rakugo in English as well. And my guest today, Tatekawa Shinoharu, does do Rakugo in English as well because his English is just great. He actually went to college here in the US and also spent some of his childhood in the US. So his English is just top notch. He's translated many Rakugo stories from Japanese into English. And also I heard on his radio show, which actually isn't being produced anymore, but he used to co-host a radio show called Rakugo Traditional Style Japanese Comedy. It was produced by Tokyo FM. And it's a great show. I recommend that you check it out if you're at all curious about the Rakugo world. He tells a lot of stories about being an apprentice and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like today's episode, but just a whole lot more of it. There are like 80 episodes out, and I've listened to all of them. So I will include a link in the show notes. But anyway, I was listening to that, and he actually talks about translating Shakespeare into Japanese and then adapting that into a Rakugo story. So that just sounded really, really interesting. Now, unfortunately, I haven't heard that, but I have watched videos of his performances. I have listened to that radio show too. So check out his stuff if you can. I actually bought a ticket to an online streaming Rakugo performance that he's doing on June 16th, 8:30 p.m. Japan time. And you can find tickets at patix.com. I will include a link in the show notes in case you're curious and you are listening to this in time. But anyway, let's get to the person that you actually want to listen to. Here's my conversation with Tatekawa Shinoharu.
The next stop is Japan Station. The doors on the right side will open.
Yeah, so I've been listening to the radio show that you were doing with Fumika for Tokyo FM.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I was listening to that for a while and more episodes today and catching up on all that.
Thank you very much. I'm surprised that you found that program.
Well, since I'm always looking for Japan content, and then I found it and I thought, oh, I wonder who's doing a podcast about Rakugo. And then I found you. It's like, oh, it's a guy that can speak English and he does Rakugo. He sounds very interesting. So,
nice.
Yeah. And then I started listening to you do a Japanese podcast too, right?
Oh, yes.
With other
Rakugo. Shinoharu.
Yes. I discovered that today. I was listening to that today. So it's a nice practice for just kind of normal conversation, Japanese. So I wanted to ask you, I was looking on your website that you were supposed to go to the, what do you call it? Like the top rank, the shinuchi rank?
Shinuchi, yes.
you were supposed to have a party or like an official ceremony in April, right?
Yes.
But
They've all been canceled.
yeah.
And
Huh.
actually, the promotion itself did happen.
Okay.
So I was promoted to the shinuchi level in April 1st this year, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
Just to explain what shinuchi is, I'll
Yeah.
just explain the 3 levels of Rakugo performer. First, we start out with Zenza, which is an apprentice. And we do our training with the master. And during the Zenza period, we're not allowed to do our own show. And then we move on to the Futatsume level, which is literally means number 2. And that is an individual performer who can perform anywhere on his own or her own. But they cannot have an apprentice of their own. And then when you move on to the shinuchi level, you become a master class and you're allowed to have an apprentice, which means that you're considered someone who can pass on the tradition of Rakugo to the later generation.
Yeah. So I remember on the radio show, on the Rakugo podcast, you mentioned that when you get the promotion for Rakugo for Shinuchi, usually your master will just kind of at the New Year's party, they just tells you come over, and then he tells you, oh, you're part of the Shinuchi. Is that how it went for you?
No, it was more. It took more time actually. He told me last year around spring that I will be promoted to Shinuchi next April. So be ready for it.
Right.
And there's a lot of preparation that is involved with the promotion, doing a big party or doing some events. And so they take a lot of time. Also preparing souvenir stuff for the promotion as well. So I've been preparing for the past, at least about half a year for the promotion.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I remember also you describe in the radio show how there's almost like a test kind of thing where he'll tell you to do like some story like random, and then you also have to do like Nihon Buyo, like traditional dance, right?
Yes,
was that the case for you too?
Yes, that was the case. Actually, that was for my Futatsume promotion. At that time, I was supposed to do 50 stories.
Yeah.
And also Nihon Buyo, which is Japanese style dancing, and Nagauta, which is singing, background singing for kabuki, usually. So I took lesson in Nagauta as well, and dancing, and I had to show my master those things.
Oh, like Nagauta, of course, like you said, you hear it in kabuki, but I don't remember ever hearing it in Rakugo. How do they connect? Is that just like general voice training or something like that?
We don't really. Yes. Yes. So we don't really sing on stage, but then there are Rakugo stories that deal with kabuki or characters who like kabuki, and so the character may be singing those tunes.
Yeah.
And when he's drunk or something, so we need to have a little bit of a knowledge of those things as well.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And also Nihon Buyo, when you're acting a certain character, it makes it more realistic if you can do the Nihon Buyo.
So, I mean, I don't know that much about Nihon Buyo, but I think like a lot of the movements are very symbolic, right?
Symbolic of a person's emotions and also a person's rank, maybe.
Oh, okay.
So if you're a samurai or if you're an ordinary person, or if you're a young lady or an old lady, so the movements differ according to who you are.
Oh, okay.
So it helps when you're acting out the characters in Rakugo.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, it's really fun. I was watching videos on your YouTube channel, for example, Yeah, like, just watching. And,
I just
mean,
started them.
yeah, I saw like you started
Yeah.
uploading like 3 weeks ago, more or less, like
Yes, yes,
regularly.
yes.
Yeah. Like I watched the one about the liquor gate, the sake gate. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, in English. And then the latest one that you have up right now is the one that is the Shinsaku, the original one that you're talking about, like Rakugoka going to a school, but they say like,
Yes,
please
yes.
don't say anything offensive, and then it's like, then what can I say? What can I say?
Right. That really happens now.
Really, they tell you
So
like, okay, do your Rakugo, but don't offend anyone.
Right. So people say, teachers may tell us that in your Rakugo stories, don't use the word father or mother because there are many kinds of families.
Yeah.
So just say an adult at home or something like that. So it's becoming very, very complicated these days.
I mean, like, I understand, like, your father, your mother, but you're talking about a fictional, like, story
Yes,
usually.
it's a fiction. yes. But that fictional story may offend someone. So with things like Rakugo, it's getting longer and longer because we need more explanation. Differ the words. And it's getting very, very difficult.
Yeah. Well,
not to offend anyone.
Yeah. My point was like, you have to do all these different characters, right? In one story, you're like a samurai. In one story, you're a principal at a school in modern times. One story, you're a little kid and a grandpa. But you have to do it all just by yourself, right?
Yeah. That's the fun part, I guess.
Yeah.
And I guess Japanese is made so that people can hear you addressing yourself and sort of know who you are, because there's many ways of saying I in Japanese.
Yeah.
Like if I say boku, then you instantly know that I'm a boy, or I'm a male. And maybe washi is an old man.
Right.
Or if I say sessha, that's a samurai.
Yeah.
So combined with the ways of addressing oneself and also just the tone of the voice, we differentiate the people. And by doing that, we can omit the narration part.
Right.
And just go on telling the story with the dialogues.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the unique part about Rakugo, is that the narrator disappears.
Yeah. Like, I think for me, like I've been studying Japanese for a very long time now, but it's always fun for me because, like, it's not like a novel. I love reading, that kind of style too. But when I listen to Rakugo, when I listen to you, like, speaking, I'm just hearing, like, people talking, right? There's no, like, and then this happened, and no, it's just, person A, person B, person A, person B, person A, person B, person C,
Right. Yeah. So I feel that we're probably using similar techniques, common with the stand-up comedians, but and they imitate the voices of many characters, right? But the person, the comedian himself or herself is on the stage most of the time, or all the time, right?
Right.
So that's probably the difference.
Yeah.
We like to disappear.
Yeah. All right. So I remember hearing in the show that at one, I don't know if you were joking, but I do know that you enjoy sumo. However, did you actually seriously consider becoming a sumo wrestler when you were a little kid?
Well, when I was a little kid, I was a big fan of the great sumo wrestler Chiyonofuji.
Yeah. Very famous.
And very famous and very muscular. And
but not that
handsome.
big, like, physically, right?
Not
like he was
big.
relatively small for a sumo wrestler.
He was 183 centimeters, which is like 6 feet.
Yeah.
Which is average for people in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
I mean, big for Japanese, but
like,
maybe below average.
I mean,
don't know.
He's like he's tiny compared to, like, Konishiki, for example, right?
Right. Yes. So and the small guy beating a huge guy like Konishiki
Yeah.
or Onokuni
Uh-huh.
at that time. And he was a big hero. And I really wanted to be a sumo wrestler.
Uh-huh. But
But I didn't
were
grow
you?
that tall, and I didn't grow that big, so I gave up.
Yeah, that was my question. Like, how big were you?
Yeah. Yes. I only reached 5'9" in
Oh. Uh-huh.
inches,
Okay. Yeah.
so I gave up.
Gotcha.
I'll be too small for a sumo wrestler.
So yeah, I know you also spent a lot of like many years in the U.S. too, right? So
Yes.
were you like you? I think you were born in Japan, but then went to the U.S., then came back, and then went to the U.S. again. Is that how it went?
Yes.
So when were you in the U.S.?
I was 8 when I first went
Uh-huh.
to the U.S.
Yeah.
I went to New York, a place called Westchester,
Oh. Uh-huh.
near New York, and then I spent there. I spent 3 years of my elementary school days
Mhm.
in America,
Mm.
and then I came back to Japan. Spent my junior high and high school days here,
Mm.
and then I moved on to college in America again. Stayed 4 years,
Mm.
so I spent a total of 7 years in America.
Mm. And so when you went back to college, like was
Yeah.
your English like already like
Mhm.
fine, or had it gotten rusty? Like what was the situation there?
Oh, it had gotten completely rusty. Um, of course, I had 3 years of my elementary school days,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't really have a chance to use it on everyday
Right.
basis,
Yeah.
just during my English classes.
Uh-huh.
So the biggest challenge for me was to chat with people,
Yeah.
chat with my friends,
Huh.
and get their jokes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the, I mean, listening to the lectures was not so difficult.
Hmm.
Getting the jokes was very difficult.
Yeah. So did you just like apply as a regular university student, or how did you go about it?
Yes, I applied as a regular
Uh-huh.
university student.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
So then what did you find it tough at the beginning?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I found it tough. And entire 4 years, I found it tough.
Huh.
Basically, it was a very challenging 4 years
Huh.
for me.
What did you study first of all?
I studied Chinese history. That was
Interesting.
not what I. yes, yes, that was not what I intended
I want to go to
when
the
I
U.S.
went.
to study Chinese history.
Yes. But the big part of going to the U.S.
Uh-huh.
was that I didn't have to choose a major in the beginning.
Ah.
Whereas in Japan, you have to choose a major and you can't change.
Uh-huh.
So once you go in, and then you find out that's not, anthropology is not what you wanted to
Right.
study,
Right.
but you can't change it,
Yeah.
and so you have to stick to it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very difficult as a 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Haven't taken any classes to choose beforehand.
Right. Yeah.
So I had not expected that I would be majoring in Chinese history, but the system was very good because it led me to be interested in Chinese history throughout the 2 years in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
So yes, the flexibility was very, very good for me.
Huh. Was it? I mean, being that you've been a professional rakugo performer now for many years, like I can't help but think, were you attracted to the kind of stories of Chinese history? Is that kind of like you just like stories and seeing how things develop and seeing how things how history is?
Yeah, well, actually, I think I was more interested in the relations between Japan,
Uh-huh.
and I sort of wanted to look at Japan through the eyes of Chinese history.
Oh.
That's probably the reason I chose it. The close ties
Uh-huh.
between the two countries, and I thought to myself, maybe I was very interested in Japan after I went to the U.S.
Right.
I became more interested in Japan, but it would probably make less sense if I chose Japanese history as a major in an American
Yeah,
university.
that would be even weirder. Yeah.
So yes. Then people would say, "What's the point?" So, that was the reason, and I really realized that I knew so little about Japan when I went abroad,
Uh-huh.
because the first friend that I made in college was a big fan of Kurosawa film,
Yeah.
and we were having a discussion about Rashomon.
Yeah.
He asked me, "What do you think of Rashomon?" And I thought it was just a gate in Kyoto. And I said, "What do you mean about what do I think about Rashomon? It's a gate." And he said, "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about Kurosawa's Rashomon." And I had never seen Kurosawa films, any of Kurosawa films.
Yeah.
And I told him I've never seen Kurosawa films, and he said, "What? I can't believe it." So you don't know how cool Shimura is?
Yeah.
And Shimura Takashi was his favorite actor, and I had never seen him. So, and then he introduced me to the Kurosawa films. He taught me everything about Kurosawa films. An American friend from Montana teaching me everything about Kurosawa films. And I thought, oh well, wait a minute. I have experienced so little about Japan, and I need to know more about Japan.
Yeah.
And so I became very greatly interested in Japan. I guess that happens when you go abroad, right?
Yeah. You do kind of either get more curious or learn to appreciate what you already have, your culture, right?
Yes. So, Tony, were you born in Hawaii?
No, so I was born in New York, and then around 10 years old, I moved to Peru for a couple of years.
Wow. Yes.
And then a couple of years later, I moved to Miami, Florida.
Wow.
And then in college, I started going to Japan. And then eventually I came to Hawaii for graduate school because I wanted to study Japanese linguistics at the master's level.
Wow. So you've been doing more moving than myself.
Yeah, I've moved around a bit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when you go like to another place, like when I went to Peru, I wasn't like Peruvian. I was the American.
Yes,
and then when I'm in America, sometimes people say, "Are you Mexican?" Right? It's like no.
Yeah.
And then when I'm in Japan, it's like I'm Americajin, right? Like, or sometimes people ask me like, "Are you like from Italy? Are you?" Because I'm kind of tan, So they just ask like Middle East or Italy or Spain. Like, oh no, Peru. And then they ask what language they speak in Peru. Perugo? No, it's not Peruvian. It's Spanish. So.
Right. Wow.
So yeah.
So you move on to the next destination, and you become more interested about the former destination, the former place that you lived.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to, right? Because people end up asking you about it, right?
Yes.
Oh, tell me about Japan. And then you go, oh, well, I don't know what to tell you about Japan, right? Then you have to learn.
Yeah, that's what I faced when I entered college, because I'd spent my high school days trying to learn about America, reading American books and watching American movies. And then I enter college, and everything people ask me about is about Japan.
Yeah.
And it's quite difficult to explain about your own culture in a different language, because you sort of just know in your own language, but to explain it is much difficult.
Yeah. That's So then what when you finish your time in college, then what are you thinking of doing? Because I know you eventually go into just like an office job, right?
Yes.
Was that your plan, or did you just kind of think like, I'm just going to go with a safe job? Like how did that develop?
Well, my plan was to live in Japan and learn more about Japan. So after finishing college, I only thought about going back to Japan and experience many things. Yeah. And so throughout that finding a job process, I decided to go to a trading company, which seemed like a nice place, and it really was a nice place. But and then I started my career in the salaryman world.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a couple years, right?
Yes. At that point, I had not met Rakugo.
Yeah.
But after I finished college and I started working, I went to many places. I went to a kabuki show and I went to Ryogoku to see sumo live.
Uh-huh.
And I went to many shows, plays in Tokyo.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of, I guess, learn about the culture and the history and all that. Huh.
Yes.
So,
And then it took a while for me to end up in Rakugo, but it took me about 2.5 years to go to a Rakugo show for the first time.
And you just found it
And-
by coincidence, right?
Coincidence, yes.
Yeah. Like,
I was looking for a good dumpling restaurant. on my way to a dumpling restaurant, I bumped into a Rakugo show. So it happened to be a show by my master, which was sort of I don't know. I was fated to go there, maybe.
Yeah.
But because had I seen some other performer doing a Rakugo show, I probably became just a Rakugo fan.
Yeah.
But I saw my master's show, and I was so surprised and astonished that I said to myself, I have to become a Rakugo performer.
Huh.
At that point, I don't know why.
Yeah. That's okay, so and one thing that I wanted to point out about this, and in the show you bring this up a couple times, but many Rakugo performances are actually quite affordable, right? Especially compared to like kabuki,
it's
right?
quite affordable.
You said like that time, I think it probably cost you like 1,500 yen, which would be like $15 US, something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you can go to 10 Rakugo shows while you go to a kabuki show.
Yeah, a single kabuki show. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or sumo too. You can go to eight sumo tournaments.
Yeah.
Or eight Rakugo shows while you go to one day of sumo tournament.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why, like, you can say, "Oh, I'll go check this show out," as opposed to like, you pass by the kabuki theater and it's sold out and it's $150 anyway. So it's like you can't do that.
Right.
Okay.
So yes, it was very casual.
Yeah. So then, at what point do you decide I'm gonna quit my job and like become an actual Rakugo performer? Because many of us have these ideas like, oh, I'd like to do this, but like quitting your job, that's a huge step.
Yeah. It took me about 6 months to go and see and listen to all kinds of Rakugo. And so I wanted to be sure that I chose the best master.
Right.
And the first person I saw, Shinosuke, was always perfect. So I decided I have to be his apprentice, and that took about 6 months. And I decided to go to him.
Yeah, and so you told your boss, I'm going to become a Rakugo.
Oh yeah. And he didn't even know that I liked Rakugo, so he was very surprised. But
yeah, well,
he was very, very.
You didn't know
nice.
Until 6 months earlier, so.
Yeah. I pretended that I knew more about Rakugo than I really did, but I told him I have to do this. I'll regret it all my life if I don't do this.
Yeah, like I've interviewed a couple other Rakugoka. Katsura Sunshine, yeah, of course, so he also has like that kind of moment that he's, I have to do this, and he has that big moment. Also, in Shofuku Te Shoko. Yes, Shoko-san. Yeah. She also has an amazing like, I have to do this kind of moment. Like I don't know if it's a pattern with all Rakugoka, but the ones that I've talked to seem to always have that like, oh my God, I've seen this amazing master on stage. I want to train under him,
Yes. So you've probably talked to the rare people in our tradition, because I think most Rakugoka like Rakugo ever since they were kids. And they begin their career in a school club, Rakugo club.
Yeah.
And they do some amateur performing, and then they become a professional.
Interesting.
So in our cases, we didn't go through the club, the amateur Rakugo period. So it's a rare case, I think.
So when you start the apprenticeship, right?
Mhm.
You the master takes you on, and then you spend most of your time with him. Like, did you
Yes.
find that you were kind of like behind the other people that were kind of the more traditional, like they start in a club in university and then move up to apprenticeship? Did you feel a
Oh,
difference?
oh yes, yes. I felt a big difference
Uh huh.
in terms of Rakugo experience. A big difference, but also what's expected of an apprentice is to make the master feel very good
Uh huh.
and do the kind of how do you say kizukai in Japanese?
To kind of notice what the other person needs or wants at
Yes,
that
yes,
moment,
yes.
right?
Right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. And do it in
Yeah.
a
Before
subtle
they say
manner
it. Yeah.
beforehand. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So reading the mind of
Yeah.
the master,
Uh huh.
and that's an ability that you have to have as an apprentice, a good apprentice. And but through if you go through Japanese club activities, you have the seniors and juniors relationship, and
Right.
you sort of grow that kind of ability. But through my days in America, I was not trained in that way.
Mm.
Right? It's a belief
Right.
that people have their own opinion and people have their own moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just leave it to them.
Yeah,
And
let them say what they need. Because, like,
yes, 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 yes.
for example, like if the master see, you have to guess that he wants tea before he
Mhm.
says, "I want tea," right?
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
you have to serve him tea.
yeah.
But I'll be waiting for the moment that he says, "I want tea,"
So American.
because you never know, and you don't want something, you don't want to do something that that
Yeah,
person does not want.
yeah. It's like I didn't want tea. Like, why do you think I want tea?
Right, 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 right. So
Huh.
that took a while.
Uh huh. Huh.
Yes, I have probably not acquired that ability at this point
You are.
compared to the other apprentices.
That's a very like kikoku shijo, right? Like
Yeah,
returnee
yes.
from like
Mhm.
a person that studies abroad and then comes back to Japan, right?
Yes, 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 yes. So not saying something that you are thinking was very difficult for me.
Ah.
Or I would not say it. I understand the system here, so I would not say it, but my face would express it. you know,
Bareteru. I was like, oh, I can see it on your
but
face.
yes, 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 they would see it completely, and I would be in trouble. I'm not saying anything, but they could feel
Uh-huh.
me saying yeah, something like I'm not wrong or something like that.
Do you
So
have
yeah.
a? Well, I'm sure you must have any like kind of what shippaidan kind of like mistake, like
Hmm.
fail kind of stories. Do you have anything that comes to mind at the moment? Like it's like, oh, I did something wrong.
Yes, well, the big thing that
Uh-huh.
I did in the beginning,
Yeah.
the first days of my apprentice years, was that my master told me to go to McDonald's to buy some things,
Okay.
and I was taught by my senior apprentices
Uh-huh.
that when our master says tells us to go to McDonald's, there are four things that you have to buy, and
Okay.
those four things are filet-o-fish and cheeseburger and small Coke
Uh-huh.
and corn potage soup, which
Okay.
used to sell in Tokyo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those four things.
Uh-huh.
And I had that in mind. And 3 months after I entered, my master told me to go to McDonald's. And I said, okay, I've learned from my senior apprentices, so I'll go and get it. And I ran to McDonald's to take out the things, the four
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
And but at that time, they were doing a special sale
Hmm.
of some kind of a special teriyaki or uh, teriyaki egg burger or something,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and they did not sell the normal hamburger and cheeseburger.
Uh-huh.
So I was in trouble. I couldn't get the cheeseburger.
Yeah.
So I decided I should not buy anything else without telling him about it. So I called him from McDonald's and
Yeah.
said, Master, I'm at McDonald's and they don't have cheeseburger.
Right.
Now, should I buy something different? And he goes, And then while he was doing that, I probably should have read his mind,
Uh-huh.
but I just waited for the answer. and 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 then he told me, it's a bit difficult to translate, but he told me 普通でいい and hang up the phone, which means just normal would be
Yeah.
fine, and hang up the phone.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, what is normal is good,
Yeah.
and I didn't really understand what
Yeah.
he's saying, but I was too scared to call him again.
Right. Yeah.
And so I decided, okay, so just normal. So skip the cheeseburger
Uh-huh.
and buy the three other things. And I bought the three other things and brought it to my master. And he took them out from the bag, one by one.
Okay.
And then fourth time, he stuck his hand inside the bag and he kept searching for something. and there's, of course, nothing inside.
Uh-huh.
And then after a while, he looked at me and said, "Where's the normal hamburger?" And at
Ah.
that moment, I realized, oh, he was talking about a normal hamburger.
Right. Huh.
And he told me to go buy it. And then I ran again to McDonald's.
Uh-huh.
And the lesson was that I made a mistake in the beginning by calling him,
Yeah.
because he knew at that point that I did not pay effort to get a cheeseburger no matter what,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
or go find a cheeseburger.
Right.
And in my mind, I thought cheeseburger is not a big deal.
Yeah.
If there's no cheeseburger, I'll buy something else. But in his mind,
Uh-huh.
doing everything to go get the cheeseburger that your master wants is a very good thing. And so he noticed in my first phone call that I did not search for a cheeseburger. And I thought anything else is fine.
Right.
So that was a big mistake.
Oh.
And yes, I went to McDonald's. I realized that on my second way to McDonald's. So I bought a cheeseburger. I asked for a cheeseburger, and they said, "We don't sell cheeseburger now." But I asked many times, I need to get this because I will be fired if I don't get the cheeseburger.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I asked many times, and then they made me a special cheeseburger.
Wow.
And I brought it back to my master and said, he told me, if you did not realize this at the first time, there's no chance that you're going to be a Rakugo performer.
Right.
There's no chance for you. So go away.
Like, you hear these stories of like a master doing that sort of thing, and like to me, I'm trying to make sense of like why a master would do that, and I have two reasons, and maybe you can tell me.
Yes. Please tell me. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So one, of course, he, especially since you're still new, he wants to test you and make sure that you're serious.
Right.
And two, he wants to develop you for when you're on stage, whether that's, being stronger because maybe the audience isn't laughing, or so that you can read the audience better. Do you think, is that kind of like the idea behind this kind of like strict like way that some masters treat their students?
I think that is connected. Yes, very, very much connected. First reason, a master would be very, very harsh on a new apprentice, no matter who that person is,
Right.
to test if he really wants to stay in this world. So maybe at times he would scold the apprentice for no reason, and test the will of that person.
Right.
So that happens. And also, it really is probably connected to the later days when you're an individual performer, and to try to read the mind of the audience and see if you're telling a story as you usually normally do, and you're getting a different kind of reaction,
Right.
then maybe something is happening in the audience, and to think and adjust yourself to what's happening, or maybe the temperature of the room is too cold,
Right.
or too hot, or the microphone is not working well, or there may be many things that is taking away from the concentration of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So to realize that and to adjust yourself, I think you have to read the mind, and that is it is a kind of a training
Yeah.
system, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's so easy to just give up at that point. But if you have experiences where you go like, oh no, if I keep pushing and maybe find a different way to make this work, I can still succeed, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it was a very, very, very big experience for me in the beginning
Yeah.
to have the hamburger McDonald incident. And but it was rough because he told me to disappear,
Uh-huh.
and you have no chance.
Yeah.
But so I went to him again and said, I really want to continue this, and he accepted me again, and my training started again from zero.
Huh. So how
Yes.
long were you an apprentice then?
I had 8 years in a little over 8 years as a Zenza apprentice,
And
which is very, very long
yeah.
because usually for a normal apprentice it's 4 years or 5 years.
Right. Yeah.
And I blame it on the American education.
Your free spirit.
Yes.
So during that time, do you like live with the master, or like how does that work?
No, I lived near his office
Mm-hmm.
because I had to pick up the car at the office at the parking lot and then go pick him up and then drive him many places. I was a driver for 8 years, so drive him to many places, and then after the day is over, return the car to the office and take care of the kimono and stuff like that. So I had to live near the office in walking distance, and it was very, very rough because I did not have any salary.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
I had very, very little money during the apprentice days,
Yeah.
and but I had his office was in a place called Ebisu, which is very, very high rent.
Yeah.
And so I had to find a place where it was my apartment was maybe 80 years old.
Wow.
Very, very old apartment, very small.
Yeah.
And so I spent 8 years there with a lot of mice and rats.
Mice and rats.
And cockroaches, yes. Terrible environment.
Is that one of those old apartments where the bath is like shared? Or like
yes, there was no bath, so I had to go to a sento, a bathhouse.
Right,
yes.
right. Yeah, I see those on TV sometimes. Yeah.
Shared bathroom. Also toilet was shared toilet.
Yeah. Wow.
Must be rough in this Corona days.
Yeah.
To live in places like that.
Yeah. Like especially with people even like working at home in those kind of like small spaces. That's tough.
Right. Yes.
Jeez.
So that was the environment.
So then, as an apprentice, you do earn something, or were you working part-time on the side as well?
No, I was not allowed to do a part-time job because I had to focus on my training.
Yeah.
And also my master is very, very busy, so I had to drive him everywhere, all day. So basically, I had to live out of my savings from my salaryman days.
Wow.
And also, I'd be earning some money from my performances as a zenza, which is like an icebreaker before my master show.
Right.
So I would appear maybe 10 minutes in the beginning and to do a little story.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how did the first time that you were on stage go? Did you I assume you were nervous?
Oh yes, I was so nervous. And because it wasn't decided beforehand that I was going to appear in the show.
Oh.
Yes. And he just, before his show was going to begin, he just called me maybe 30 seconds before and told me to go up on stage and do your story. So yes, that was a very scary experience. But I went up on stage and I told the audience that this is my first performance of my life. And they gave me a big applause in the beginning. So that was very nice.
Yeah.
After that, it was silence, complete silence for 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
People
Oh,
just wishing that the story to end. And me too, just wishing that I will reach the end of the story.
but you were able to get to the end. You didn't like forget. You were able to actually finish. Okay.
Yes, I was able to finish the story.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
Well,
without any sound at all.
wow. Okay. Did you get sweaty?
Oh yes, 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 yes. But the applause, I still remember, the warm applause in the beginning,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I guess the at the end after I finished, applause again of relief, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because I yes, I
It's
was able to
over.
finish.
Yay.
Yes, 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 yes.
Wow.
We were all happy about that. Yeah.
So then apprenticeship, about 8 years, and you go to futatsume, the kind of middle rank, I guess you could say. And then, as we
Yeah,
were
yeah,
saying
yeah.
before, then you get to shinuchi, where you can have your own apprentices. At what point do you start doing English rakugo?
Yes, that was a big opportunity. Was in 2 years after I became a futatsume. I was invited to a storytelling festival in Singapore,
Ah,
and they were inviting many storytellers from many countries, maybe 10 countries, and I was one of them. And they had heard about the Rakugo and someone who performs Rakugo in English. And I had only performed once before that. But
perform once in English or perform once in
once in
general?
English, yeah.
Oh, okay, in English. Okay,
Once in English.
okay,
So 99.9% were
right.
in Japanese. But I thought it was an interesting experience. So I went there and I participated in the festival. And I met many storytellers from abroad. And they said that the style where you don't have a narrator, you tell a story, the Rakugo style to tell a story by acting out all the characters is very, very unique.
Yeah.
And they told me to do it in many places.
Mm-hmm.
So they encouraged me, and I thought, well, yeah, maybe I should.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning.
Oh. So something interesting that I found this was again going back to the radio show, but
Yeah.
in one episode you tell a story about was it Hanaikada, a sumo wrestler,
Yeah.
the fake sumo wrestler,
Wow, that's
and
a
then
rare story. Yeah.
that was it was very funny. I enjoyed it, but
Yeah.
I loved how at the end you get to this point where often like some Rakugo stories are based on puns, right?
Yeah,
So they're
yeah,
very
yeah.
hard or impossible to translate. And so you get to the end of that story and you realize there where, first of all, it's hard to translate and the punchline
Yeah.
doesn't really make sense. But second, like even in Japanese, it kind of didn't make sense because,
Yeah.
right. So what I'm wondering is like, I guess when you start translating these stories and thinking about them in English, like, do you
Yeah.
learn about the original story? Does it help you in some way? Well, like, have you
It
found
really
that?
does help, actually. For that program, I was basically doing it on the spot.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
really choosing stories based on easiness to translate.
Right.
So, but usually when I really translate a story into English, I choose a story that makes sense
Yeah.
in English as well. And the process of choosing a story that can make sense in English or make sense to the audience abroad is one thing. Is to realize that the funny part, or the humor that is inside the Rakugo story, is this universal or is this just Japan thing?
Yeah.
And you get to realize that. And the stories I have already translated, about 25 stories. They were stories that I thought had something universal. There's something that people all over the world can relate to.
Right.
And some stories rely too much on puns, Japanese puns, so it's impossible to translate.
Yeah.
But to for me to have that kind of experience is very, very, very worthy thing to translate the stories.
Yeah, like, for example, like when you're doing just general translation from Japanese to English, often you have to think about like what's the subject. Like, a lot of things go unsaid in Japanese, but in English
Oh,
you
yes,
have to
yes.
make it very clear. So,
Yes.
I wonder, like, does that really make you kind of have a deeper understanding of the Japanese story as well?
Yes, it really does. So I've always been thinking that I should translate all my stories that 100, maybe 20 stories that I have.
Yeah.
I should translate them for my own sake,
Yeah.
but I haven't.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
a
little by
bit
little.
lazy, but yeah. I should really do that.
So, of course, right now we're in the whole coronavirus thing. It's
Oh,
May,
yes.
and I assume there aren't really any shows, and so you've been doing like the YouTube stuff and all that. But
It brought a big change, though.
yeah,
I would not have done YouTube if we didn't enter this period.
right. Yeah.
I haven't done a performance since March for over 2 months, so that's the longest that I haven't performed
Yeah.
after becoming a Rakugo ka.
Right.
And I always thought that live performance is the best, and you can only convey the entire Rakugo story through a live performance.
Right.
And that's what I always thought, and I was reluctant to upload my stories on YouTube because I thought it would be something less than Rakugo. But I changed my mind a little bit, and I thought maybe it's good to spread the stories to a wider, range of people through YouTube, and get people to know about Rakugo to begin with.
Yeah, I think so. I think like it's a good entry point, right? So that
Yes,
you
yes.
can enjoy it. It's funny, and you can get more interested. And then when we finally have the opportunity to actually go see shows,
Yes.
because the thing about, like, for example, one thing about the you've talked about this on the radio show, but also, like, for example, when I was talking to Katsura Sunshine, he said kind of the same thing. So
Yeah.
I asked him, and you've said this before, but how do you know what stories you're going to tell? I was like, no, I just like basically decide on the day, right?
Yeah,
You don't really
yeah.
know what the show is going to be. So I think for a person in the audience, that's kind of fun, right? Like you don't know what you're going to get.
That's true.
Exciting, right? And then also there's like the kind of you call it in the Rakugo world, it's called the makura, right?
Yeah.
The kind of
Introduction.
right, the introduction, which can be anything, right? Yeah, like something that happened to you that day, or just any kind of personal story as well.
Yeah, which leads into the story.
Right. Yeah, so
yes,
the live show is an experience in and of itself, but yeah, watching a video on YouTube is like, oh wow, I didn't know about this. Now I want to know more, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good change that was brought to me.
Yeah.
I felt like a surfer, waiting for a wave forever to be waiting for an opportunity to do a live performance.
Yeah.
And then midway through April, I thought maybe this wave will not come for a while. And I probably have to go and search for another place where there are waves.
Yeah.
And that's basically the idea of starting the YouTube. And I'll probably start out my online broadcast, Rakugo, soon.
Oh, like a live
show.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, please send me the link, or I will.
Yes,
I will. Keep checking on that because I want to check it out. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yes.
So I will include the link for the YouTube, and I saw that you're on Twitter as well.
Yes.
And anything else that you want to include, you can just let me know. I'll put that all in the notes for the show. Yeah. It was a really fun to get to talk to you, and I've enjoyed listening to your shows, and I will definitely keep listening to the Japanese language one because I'm always looking for Japanese language content to consume to keep my so I don't get rusty in my Japanese, you know?
Right. Oh, same here. I'll keep listening to your programs because I need to keep myself understanding English.
Yeah, well, episode
Because,
3 is with Shoko-san. Episode 3, no, episode 5, I think,
Yeah.
is with Shoko-san. So if you want to check that out.
yeah, I will definitely do that. I will keep on checking your podcast because it was a big challenge for me today.
Yeah.
Because I think it's been a while since I spoke in English.
I guess
last
so,
time,
huh?
maybe more than a year.
When's the last time you did an English performance?
English performance, that was last October.
Oh, yeah, you always do the October performance, right?
Yes, so
Yeah.
it's about half a year, right?
Wow, yeah.
Yes.
But normally, okay, when we can have shows, what's your show schedule generally like? I guess you have mostly Japanese, but some English every
Yes.
once in a while.
Hmm. Some English. It's very when I'm traveling inside Japan, it's really difficult to find an audience who understands have a situation where the entire audience understands English.
Right.
So I basically have to choose Japanese. But when I have a crowd who understands English, I do it. So I go to international schools in Japan to perform.
Yeah.
And I do my own shows, English shows in Japan twice a year. And then I travel to many other places.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever come to Hawaii?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm
okay.
seeking for a chance.
If you ever get the chance, I highly recommend it. There's a big, of course, Japanese community here from Japan.
Yes.
But there are
Yes.
also many people that are Japanese Americans and they love the Japanese culture too.
Yes.
Katsura
So I'm thinking,
Sunshine.
if I go to Hawaii,
Yeah.
probably I will be able to do a Japanese show and an English show, right?
Yes. So Katsura Sunshine has been here for an English show. I went to his show. It was full. It was at the University of Hawaii. And also
Nice.
Tatekawa Danke-san.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came here and he did two shows, I think, in Japanese. And the Japanese nationals, they came to see that show too. So it'd be perfect. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully,
I love that chance.
I hope you can come in the near future. I would definitely go check your show out. Probably
Right.
both. Probably both the Japanese and the English stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It'll be less of a jet lag for me as well.
True.
Compared to other
Yeah.
American cities too. So I'm looking
just
forward to the chance. Yeah.
for shows, if people do want to check out your shows, because the good thing about podcasts is people can discover this 5 years from now. So where should people go to look at your schedule if there's upcoming shows and they want to
Okay. There's my homepage, which is shinoharu.com, and my schedules are all on that homepage.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes,
I'll include a
website.
link for that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Shinoharu-san, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Tony.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you.
Me too.
As always, I will include all the relevant links to things like Shinoharu-san's YouTube channel, his Twitter page, his website, in the show notes. And that does include the show notes that go out to all the podcast apps. The links will be there. But if you want to see things like embedded videos, I'm going to include a couple of videos related to the things we discussed today. You can go over to japanstationpodcast.com and find episode 41. That's where you will find the complete version, the full version of the show notes. So again, japanstationpodcast.com, find episode 41. So again, thank you so much, Shinoharu-san. I loved talking to you, and I very much look forward to the day when I can see you in person performing in Japanese or in English. I don't really care, or both, if you ever come to Hawaii, for example. So I very much look forward to that. If you, the listener, have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at mail@japanstationpodcast.com. Follow me on Facebook and or Twitter at JapanKyo News. And of course, remember to subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Thank you so much to Unomi for providing the opening and closing song. And that does it for episode 41. Episode 42 is, of course, already in the works. I should be recording that interview in the next couple days, but I won't say quite yet who I'm going to be talking to. So go check out social media and all that, or just go over to the Patreon and sign up, because the patrons do get to find out who the guests are before anybody else. Anyway, episode 42, like I said, should be coming out soon. It'll be out by July 1st. By the way, if you're curious about why pancakes from Hawaii are such a big deal in Japan, or why so many Japanese people love to visit Hawaii, then go check out the latest episode of my other podcast, Ichimon Japan. That is episode 17. Just go over to japankyo.com/Ichimon Japan. We did quite a bit of research to try to find some answers to these questions, and it's a pretty fun episode. You get to learn a little bit about Hawaii too, not just Japan. So go check that out if you have a chance. The next episode that will be out within a few days, maybe even just 2 days of this episode coming out, is what is seppuku? So seppuku is, of course, that whole cutting your thing open, you're a samurai, blah, blah, blah. Then if you want to find out more about that, go check it out. It's a pretty fun episode. So that does it. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, go find your miniature pony.
Just do it!